Nigeria, what is the plan? Recently, a tweet by David Hussein caught my attention. He shared a thread about the current situation of Nigeria's youths, and he wrote from the perspective of youths born into wealthy families. And this is what he said. I attended my secondary school alumni meeting yesterday, and I felt really, really sad about Nigeria. Bear in mind, this is Atlantic Hall we're talking about, so pretty much all of us won the birth lottery to begin with. But everybody is leaving Nigeria. This is not a drill. He explains that though he and his mates were from privileged backgrounds, they still could not withstand the crippling force that Nigeria can be. He specifically states that the cost of education is a driving factor for the mass exodus. The fact that instead of building and consolidating on what their parents built, they're selling off their property in order to pay bills. So he asks, Nigeria, what is the plan before the middle class completely cease to exist? I started to wonder if what the writer was saying was true. Was there really this mass exodus of the middle class? What would it mean for the future of my country? A reliable source within the Ikoyi office of the Nigeria Immigration Service, NIS, confirmed that 1 million Nigerians have emigrated to several countries in Europe, America, Asia, and even Africa since the advent of the present administration in 2015. I also know of a number of people that have left the country, so it does look like there is evidence to support his claim. This should be a serious cause for concern. The loss of the skill, knowledge, and expertise of the middle class could spell total system collapse for my country. So, Nigeria, what is the plan, if indeed there is a plan? How do we encourage this group of people to stay, to have hope, and to believe in Nigeria? What say you, my fellow panelists?
Why are you asking Ireti?
Because
in case she wants to go ahead, put her glasses on.
No, because he talks about 2015 to now. So.
Okay, I think Ireti needs to speak up for this current. Okay. No, please let me take it away from that. Ireti hasn't gotten it.
Since our man came into power, 1 million people on record have left
the country. More than.
Okay, so
he's
more
saying
than
that
1 million. It could be a lot more than 1 million that have left. And of the middle class.
Yes.
So Liborous is saying you should do a rebuttal because it concerns.
Maybe you know a lot about that.
Why would you say I should do a rebuttal? You're busy defending politicians in court and you want me to do a rebuttal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me take it from there. Okay, let me just make the point that through the research I found, the only thing I could see that demonstrated any sharp exodus was in the 1980s. I'm not sure. Someone will enlighten me as to why.
I totally agree with you. Go ahead.
Early 90s. Which one was
No,
it?
it says 1980s. It actually started in the 90s.
So there was nothing significant around this period. I mean, the only thing
That's when they had data. Now they no longer.
Oh, really? But they still documented it prior to 1980s and afterwards. So you can see the spike.
Yes, you can.
And then after that, it seems to just pretty much stay about the same.
No.
So the only thing then, because Uche and I were chatting earlier on, and the one we know that's in the news is the exodus of the doctors. That one is documented now.
Even the government has said they can go, that we have a
money. That what they get is a failure.
That was the most irresponsible statement by
Minister, yes.
Because he says we have enough doctors, so if they like, let them go.
Ekene,
What if the best are going?
We don't even have the statistics of the ones that are living.
It's not a question of numbers.
This your data might not be correct also.
It seems to be consistent along several.
As I speak to you every day, I have people who want to emigrate to Canada, who are looking for... Recently, there was this fake news that Canadian government is looking for 1 million Nigerians. Yep. Why did that happen? Because a lot of people who are looking for... and then there's this new rave. Everybody wants their kids to go to school abroad.
Is it even new? It's always been like that.
But not at
this level.
Because the systemic collapse, it didn't just start with this administration, though. True. So the collapse of our educational system over the years, that now coupled with ASU strike. So you really can't, even Ghana, Cotonou, Nigerian students are all over the place.
Malaysia,
so people want to go to school. And then if it's 3 years program, you come out 3 years, And then if you weigh the fee that they're paying in the private universities here, coupled with the fact that if you, in some cases, You know, these students, some of them can even work abroad, you know, while still going to school. So, you know, unlike here, you pay the fees, they come back on holiday, they are driving your cars, they are sitting at home.
I mean, the other point I was going to make, I agree with you. The other point I was going to make is that these people that he was referring to, his colleagues, are they really the middle class? They're the upper class.
No, they're not.
No, they're the middle class.
Are they the middle class?
They are not middle
because
class.
if you're going to Atlantic Hall,
no, they are.
you're going to Atlantic Hall.
Yeah, Atlantic Hall. I mean, let's look.
He's
at
a product of
let's
consider that to be
I
middle class.
totally agree with you. Let's look at what middle class is, and we always, because in Nigeria, we always seem to forget. We always seem to forget that there is a burgeoning middle class.
Middle class does not mean that you live in three-bedroom flats.
Yeah, we seem to think, oh, you go from the masses straight to the elite.
Exactly.
There is a middle ground, and if you can,
how would you define it?
If you can, it's economics. If you can afford Atlantic Hall, you are middle class. You are not an elite. No, you are not.
You'll be studying abroad.
You are not elite. Even if you studied abroad, it doesn't mean some people save up. You can save up. You and I can save up to send our children abroad. But let's go back to what I think. There is to what Uche was saying, and I understand his fears actually, but I think we have to look at what the damages that middle class bring to society. And also, I understand that you do need a middle class within a society. Absolutely. Because you need that balance. But however, the people who actually vote the least in Nigeria are the middle class and the upper class and the elite, etc., etc. They're the people who but they gain more from political administrations, yet they invest a lot less in their time. So I'm not worried. That's number one, because of the middle class. I'm not worried.
You're talking like Ekene now.
No. Ekene mentioned about professions. I am talking, no, it is not the same thing. Okay, not all doctors are middle class, for goodness sake.
But the ones that are living are middle class.
Not all doctors.
The ones that are living are middle class.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about generally. Okay, I'm talking about the societal configuration. So when you have all of that, so there's balance, there's good and bad for having a middle class.
But what I wanted to find out from you, what is the bad
of the middle class? Right, that's what I'm saying. So the middle class of Nigeria, they actually don't take part in the political struggles. They gain from it more. If you look at the voting records, it's not the middle class that actually vote. Okay, it's also like that very much in other countries, but it's worse when it's in Nigeria. It's a fact. It's not something I'm making up. There are statistics to match it up. We can find it when we do the bureau. There are statistics to match this up.
Do you know why?
No, I disagree with you, so your why wouldn't work for me, but go ahead and present.
Do you know why?
Go on.
You know, just before the election, the middle class don't vote, the middle class don't vote. Some of us
monitor the election. Yes, I heard some politicians actually saying that. Some of us monitor the
election. We're everywhere, go to VGC,
middle class
go to Lekki, and if you see the crowd, the massive turnout in these places.
That's
for
the middle class areas.
Yes, let me finish. The fact that you have more people in Oshodi, Mushin, and Lakoko, and you have 1 million turnout in those places, and then you have 300 people in Lekki, and then you have 290 people turn out to vote, does not mean that the people in Lekki didn't turn out.
They are less in numbers.
They are less in numbers than those in Alakuko, in Alagbado, and Oshodi and Mushin. You know? So these are also some factors that people don't take into cognizance when they're discussing this middle class. But then, that's an aside.
Less of the middle class anyway.
Yeah, that's an aside. But the society we are in, you have less of the middle class because some people you even tag as middle class are people who are even struggling to fit in. And so you also find the danger in all of this is that this middle class is, in most cases, are the energetic ones.
Aspiring for a better life.
Yes. The ones that have the energy to deliver, to build societies. And so if mass of these people are living,
seeing better opportunities outside.
And that's why some people, in spite of their immigration laws, we open doors and windows for your people to come in.
That's also another factor. Why is Canada seeing them as attractive?
Because
that was actually fake news. That was fake news. Canada actually made a statement.
They see the energy. They see the energy.
But Canada has always accepted immigration from professionals. It had nothing to do with Nigeria. They always have. Wherever you come in the world.
We agree with that.
In the same vein, Chuka,
yes, of people.
You remember those days, these same 80s, 70s that we're talking about, early 70s, late 70s. We had this exchange programs where you had Indians, Chinese, Korean, come here, even Malaysians coming here to study and understudy. You know, the same way we send some of our people there.
Over there.
But now, that was what Canada was doing. You know, exchange program, and then they open their doors to welcome your experts.
Okay.
If you're good in this field, you can come work here. And so they provide the opportunity that your country is not providing. And so when people saw all of this, a lot of people are taking advantage of it.
So what is
what is the solution?
Right, because no,
it was not born out of exchange.
It wasn't born out of exchange, Liborous. I'm sorry. Canada has always encouraged migration by professionals all throughout, because they have a huge, they have huge land, they have lots of space, but they don't have a large population as of that time. So it's always been, it had nothing to do. It had nothing to drive this point.
I remember the Hong Kong
Sorry, can I come in, guys?
Yes.
What I really want to know
to come over if they didn't want to be there after 19.
I think because of the issues that were happening.
Let's not spend too much time arguing about why Canada. Yeah, because really what I want to know is how do we stop this? Because it's getting to the point.
Jobs.
Yeah, but how do we...
Education.
Uche, you see,
we will need to first appreciate the value of these people.
Let's understand that
that's a good
every government owes us a lot.
Don't have time to
If you come and you say you want to provide education, you want to provide infrastructure, we should hold you accountable and responsible. Government, the world is diversifying into a knowledge-based economy. Here we're talking agriculture, even though we are killing small businesses. Agriculture without value added is poverty. And so the only way we can stop this is to create education that will in turn create jobs.
Excellent.
Education and jobs.
I think on that note we'll have to, stop. Okay, well, all is said and done. We're all about finding the way forward. Chuka progresses things after the break.
Welcome to The Advocate, a program that thrashes out all the topical issues of the day.
When you are in government, you don't see nothing wrong with whatever is happening. The moment you are out there, everything is wrong.
You can't even see many women now, and when they're there, they're not even really making a mark, and then they have an NYSC problem and this and that.
One of the reasons why we don't have more women in politics in Nigeria is for as long as political meetings continue to take place in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
Really disastrous for a president
to even say
to be unaware of the chief
justice. It's a ploy. It could be a strategy.
That strategy was
very
terrible strategy. Because the buck stops at your table.
Whether it's that we don't look after our cities, and quite frankly, Nigeria is becoming a very ugly place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news, and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, the news.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Time to look grief in the face, no shaking. Some grieved over the Notre Dame catastrophe in Paris, a building of over 900 years, largely destroyed. French billionaires came to the rescue, each pledging hundreds of millions of euros. That's how much they value culture and history. Some long-throat, that means greedy, Africans, asked why these billionaires had not solved our poverty problem. Have wealthy Africans done that for their own people? Then the word billionaire came up again, this time with regard to the terrorist bomb attacks in Colombo, Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday. A billionaire with the largest land ownership in the UK lost 3 of his 4 children. Another young British man lost his wife and 2 children. What sort of life going forward? Suddenly, Notre Dame pales into insignificance for me. What's the world coming to? Islam hijacked, xenophobia on the rise, nationalistic extremists taking over. The perfect antithesis of colonialism. There will be scarred people everywhere, families shattered, mental illness becoming a real consequent problem, disjunction and displacement becoming real. We need to have discussions around identity and culture now more than ever. A shared geographical space equates not to a shared vision. To prevent these recurrent tales of grief, we must re-examine our values, especially as regards the real presence of varied divisive forces.
Interesting. Yeah. I just want to, I want to highlight the point you made about the antithesis of colonialism, because I find this intriguing when you start looking at patterns of behavior. So do you feel it was always going to come about? Do you think it was a natural progression of things? That you go from one extreme of people hijacking your culture to you fighting back? Is that what you think?
I think so. And, or rather, I knew that they were going to fight back against us going back to them as they came to us once. I'll just tell you.
I totally get where you're coming
I'll tell you a
from.
short story. When I was in my first year in university, I went on an excursion with the first year students, and we went to Florence. We went by train, and I remember I had to go and get visas for every country we passed through.
Emigrating.
Now, on the way back, there was a problem. The train was not going to go through Paris. It was going to go through Belgium, and I had not gotten Belgium. So I had to take some money from the tutor in charge and buy a ticket and fly back and give them the money in London. All this I did while I was actually British, technically. I just had never applied for a passport or anything at that time. Why did I not apply for a passport? Because I just felt that it was odd, my handling a British passport. Because as far as I was concerned, I'm a black man, I'm Nigerian, Chuka is my name,
so
I'm not John Smith.
On principle.
And I felt that if I used to watch people go at the airport, when we land at the airport from Lagos, I would see my friend Chukudi or Ade heading to British passport. I'm like, this is ridiculous. These guys are this is just a joke. And then I used to think to myself, the white people must be very angry about this, seeing those two boys going through their counter. So I'm not going to do that because I just can't take that stress. Then my parents said, look, go, you see now, you couldn't even make your way back to
What's
England.
your point? This story is
So
ticking.
basically, I had to go and get a passport. And it made my traveling easier. And that's what I've seen that passport as, to travel. But it shows you that at that point, I was beginning to see that they're not going to like us saying we are them. So I'm Nigerian, and it's not going to be nice for one John Smith to see me as British.
Okay.
And then to see a million of me. To see one or two.
I thought I got where you were coming from, but I think I'm not. I'm not.
them and us
Let me
thing.
explain something.
Sorry, quickly.
Please.
Let Liborous express
Okay,
himself.
go on.
I completely agree with you. You find that one big problem that is, we are all confronted, but we refuse to talk about is the fact that me trying to be you, or you not allowing me to be me, and then I struggling to be me, or say, no, look, I must be me.
Identity issues.
Yes, identity issues. Take Nigeria, for example. Some people came up, oh, look, we want to practice Islam in our domain. And others says, no, we must be a secular, state. And then in some cases, you have people who want to be more British than the British man. And at the end of the day, we say, oh, this one is the fake one, this one is the real one. But if we say we want to practice federalism, allow everybody to practice, their kind of government, what's comfortable for them. But with, some modicum of regulations. If we allow that, the world will be a better place. Okay. Islam will not feel, look, we are being compelled to embrace.
So there's a kind of colonial mentality still operating. If you're imposing a culture on people that is not natural to them.
That's why, because some people feel the West came to impose their culture on us.
But even amongst
ourselves.
And so
now we need to try to liberate ourselves. And then that process, like you talked about, the Islam, hijacking of Islam. And some, dissident hijacked that process. And then some people who ordinarily should know better now see that, because also they have bottled up this hatred for colonization, they now see them as, liberators. It's the same thing with culture. It's the same thing we're practicing here. And that's why Chuka will feel, I don't want to be British because I am not British. And then the other man feels, look, we are British, we should accept it that way. And even though you carry that British passport, you carry the British passport, it gets to a point, that, look, you are just holding a British passport, you are not really British.
Yeah. The point...
Here we go.
The point I want to make here is that the reason why I think people are kicking back, it's not necessarily because they're just fed up with people trying to, I think people have a problem with people that come into their country and don't really assimilate properly, or they bring their own ways and try and change the way the country is being run. Now, for instance,
I have to agree with that.
You come to the UK, right? And you now want to impose Sharia law in areas, and that's what they're doing in some areas in the UK now. They're imposing
Is that not what the UK
Sharia.
is doing too?
Doing where?
Continue. Gay.
No, this
branched
is
back.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that anybody
that's-
is innocent of any crime.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that this happens to be, I've noticed this a lot. I have a friend who's from Australia, and she's also complaining that the same sort of thing is happening in Australia, where the indigents of Australia do not have the same rights as people emigrating or illegal immigrants coming into Australia. Yeah, so it seems to be happening everywhere. If people come into a country and they're not willing to assimilate or willing to just be like the people around them, and they're coming with their own strong culture, and they might as well stay in your country.
I totally agree.
Let's
May I come in? So first of all, Chuka, you don't have to take the British nationality if you don't want to. It's not enforced on you. It is by choice.
It never was, I know.
That's what I mean. No, that's
Let
for
them
the
not
sake
come
of,
and take
that's
it.
for the sake of Liborous. It is not enforced on anybody. It is by choice. That's number one. Number two is it's also part of the debt of colonialism. Back in the days, there was such a thing called British protectorate visas and passports, where as a Nigerian, you probably would have been, well, our
How would the British
grandfather-
feel is
Allow
protecting
me
me?
to finish. It's called the British because they came and they invaded your country.
Now they
Although
owe you
those weren't
something.
proper
I
citizens.
just said it's the debt of colonialism. Debt,
But carry on.
they say,
Don't let it slow you down.
Exactly, so I don't lose my train of thought.
Yeah.
So there was such a thing back then. And if your father or your grandfather had actually claimed a British protectorate visa or passport at that time, it can pass on to generations. It's just that most people didn't bother to do so. So that's one fact. The other fact is
mine was for being born there.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yes, so exactly.
Which was
Which
different
is where I
from-
was coming to.
right.
You were born there. If you're born in a country, it is your choice whether you choose because you have dual nationality. Those of us that are blessed as Nigerians, Nigeria is one of the countries where you can have dual nationality. You can choose to be both, okay, without denying your place of birth.
Although we weren't
or
originally,
your nationality.
until about 19...
Yes, they changed
late
it, but
80s was when they allowed us to actually have...
allow
That will explain the spark
I
of
agree.
But
So
let
the
Ireti
next thing
finish,
then
'cause-
is cultural appropriation, what you were talking about with regards to people coming into a country and imposing.
Yes, when in
Yes,
Rome.
of course. What we need to focus more, I think, is I'd like to look at the positive part of when people merge. And I think the world, if we had more of a borderless world, we wouldn't have so many problems. What we need to do is actually learn to respect each other's culture more, okay, and learn and lend and celebrate each other's culture. That way we get true multiculturalism.
Yeah.
What we don't need is when those who resent others that have British passports think it's okay to resent them.
Okay,
When
just
you are born
want to make another-
you are born
don't
British.
reduce this
Now go
to
back
British
go back
passports.
to the New Zealand, sorry, the one you were talking
Australia.
about.
Australia, yeah.
The Australians, actually, those who are complaining to you, unless she's an Aborigine, she has
she's
no
not an
right.
Aborigine.
Exactly, she even has no
Yeah, but
right.
she's-
to
That was the point I was going to make.
But then
She has
you
no
go
right
back...
to
No,
that
Yeah.
country.
Yeah, but
Let me make this point.
Arrest
Let me
my
make this
case.
point because, to some extent, I'm somewhere between Uche and Ireti in the sense that actually, yes, people should adopt. When you go to someone's country, you should respect what you meet on the ground
Yes.
and try
And
and be
celebrate
like
each
them.
other.
Don't go
Yes.
there and try and set up your own
Yes.
little emirate. But the other side of it is also that nobody really can say they are 100% indigenous in the sense that someone must have migrated at some
Thank
point.
you.
So all this
Thank
idea
you.
of them
I
versus
agree.
us is completely fallacious, to use Liborous' word.
No, but if
so
I
let's
talk
all
like-
try and
if-
absorb and
Yeah.
understand that the world was always
But
going
if
to
we
be
behave
fluid.
Exactly, and celebrate
lawyers
that
would say,
fluidity.
if I've been in England for 300 years, if I'm the type of people that have been British for 300 years, then we are now the British.
Precisely.
And so I believe that if you keep going on about Aborigines, then that's going too far.
No, it's
If-
not,
if-
because
you
if an
see,
Australian is
here the
complaining
problem-
about somebody
the
coming to
problem-
take over their country, you're not even, unless you're an Aborigine, it was never your country.
You
Just
see-
like
okay, well,
Americans and
quickly,
Well, I'm
Chuka,
afraid-
sorry,
I'm afraid
sorry,
I'll
few
have to-
seconds,
I'll have to
few
you know,
end it.
Native
Please, quickly,
Indians,
few seconds.
Native
Okay,
Americans.
it has to be
Quick
few
seconds,
seconds.
very few seconds.
Oh, no, it's not going to be
You,
fair.
no,
I
really,
will stop
really,
you.
you
All right.
find out that, the issue here is everybody is guilty of this. The West came, imposed their culture.
Correct.
Imposed their way of life. You must behave this way, you must do this. And now you have a backlash. These same people that you have once imposed their culture on are realizing, and they feel, look, we also need to live our life and not live your life. That's where the clash is.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Like Uche said, we're all about solutions, right? Liborous wants to take the magnifying glass to our national pledge after the break.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Charity begins at home. The Nigerian pledge, a real fool in April. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity, to uphold her honor and glory, so help me God. We mouth these words daily, yet we are so unfaithful, disloyal, and dishonest in all our daily dealings with the citizens and the country. Even those that serve, do not with all their strength and not pay their salaries. Talk less of those that died once serving. Whose unity are we actually defending when Lagos can't be your home despite being born and raised here and you own properties there? What honor is left of a country to uphold when she's daily being raped by custodian of her chastity? And until we rise and do something, God will never help us.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Can I just say, I love our pledge. I've always loved it. I like it. I love that you read it out. I think we need to be reminded of it.
But he's saying it's
Let
a
me
fast.
just say that.
He's saying it's a fast.
He said it's a
enough.
yeah. I'm not
Essentially,
saying yeah, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't believe we should have it. Abi?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. That if we believed in it,
we
truly,
need to
live it.
Not just
believe
No, but
what do we have
leave
to
it.
pledge for?
it's the same scenario about, you know, it's
like-
the same scenario we have in Nigeria.
The governance of behavior.
We have
Yeah, lift up a
churches
vision.
at every corner. We have like, it's the same thing. We have churches, so we have like a so-called form of godliness, but not therein.
Yeah.
So the whole
highly
point.
religious, less godly.
Yes,
I like
thank
the
you.
therein. She went for
Therein.
King James.
I had to cruise that in.
Okay, look,
so
listen.
that's the whole point. He's saying we say this pledge
Without
but
meaning.
but it's
No, but he's saying a
anything.
lot more as far as I can make out, because he's actually looking at some of the causes and effects. In other words, you know, even the people who are not serving with their strength, because they're not, even though they're not serving with all their strength,
Yeah, they're not paid
being
well.
paid.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can blame them entirely for not serving, because
Yeah.
they are also in a position
So
of
it's a
oppression.
combination of the people and the system.
So when he then says, unless you rise up and do something, my question is, what is that something? Because
It's
that's the $200 question.
Ireti
Of
talked
naira,
about,
2 million
Ireti
naira
accused me of defending politicians and then accused the middle class of gaining so much from the system.
Not giving enough.
And
I don't
not
give
giving
enough.
enough. We should all collectively learn to give enough. You recite, Chuka once talked about, saying it as it is and,
Kicking out the cop out.
exactly. And so you find out that this attitude of defending ineptitude, if your governor is inept at his job, don't defend him even if you belong to the same party, because the reason why you voted him there in the first place is to uphold our honor and glory.
Okay.
May God.
Exactly, and you must first and foremost uphold
that honor and
before
glory.
God will help you.
So can I say
And
something?
these are the only ways we can achieve.
Does this
it's
mean
like, sorry, quickly, it's
that-
like having a mission statement and you go against that mission statement every day.
No, okay, so does this mean that most Nigerians, they are not actually patriotic? Because we tend to only go for what lines our pocket. So the reason why you mentioned that
Self first.
there's some people will, it doesn't matter what the governor does, they'll support him,
Yeah.
even if he's doing rubbish. Maybe if we actually thought about the good of our country, on the whole, not just thinking about, if we're
Self.
collecting, we should stop thinking about self. So I actually think a lot of Nigerians are not patriotic.
Yeah,
Yes,
I agree with you.
No, but you would think we are, because we're all
Uche,
like, many of us act as
Uche,
if
if we're all
we're proud
patriotic,
Nigerians, but we're not.
If we're all patriotic, Ekene said one thing that sometimes I just sit back and I laugh. Always very proud of it. She said some siren blaring horns were behind her and she blocked. She actually showed how, to be a better Nigerian. And others who were looking for a leader to lead followed suit. Okay. And so in everything that we do, some of us, we might just be the Bible others will read. It is not until if a man comes to my office and say, I bless you, brother, I'll be suspicious of you.
Yeah.
Leave it.
Forever and a day, I agree with you.
Or you say, let us join hands in prayer. I will know that you
before
want
we
to
even
defraud
talk.
me.
Exactly.
Believe it. It's not enough to put your hands there and say the recite the pledge. And when it doesn't mean anything.
How do you make Nigerians more patriotic?
But
How do you make them believe in Nigeria more than,
Yeah.
Again, I have to thank you,
than we
Liborous,
do.
because I really, really like the pledge. And I think something happened to us. As of the time when we were much younger, before I left this country, I would always remember that you would read the pledge. You had to read the pledge daily. And I think once we stopped doing that...
They're still doing it at school.
I don't know, right, okay, so they still do it.
it.
Sorry, I'm not that familiar with what goes on in primary schools and stuff now. And I think for maybe when it is read, if it is still read now, because at first I thought because it wasn't being read anymore. But since you say it is being read, perhaps they should spend the first 20 minutes of every class to discuss what does it mean and how do you demonstrate it? How did you demonstrate it yesterday?
Civics.
And then we continue to
exactly. I still think the angle is.
I think we then continue to create a new generation that will begin to imbibe and behave the way the pledge said. So we then have a governance of behavior, which is what you're saying we should have that we don't have.
But you have to give people a reason to love their country. If people don't have a reason to love Nigeria, they're only going to be thinking about
how many people hate America right now, but they're still totally committed to
many people love America too.
As a matter of fact, they do love America.
Yes, they do love America.
We must love Nigeria.
Yes, we need to love Nigeria the way Americans are loving America.
What Uche is saying, no, Uche, I'm actually disagreeing with you. I believe we do love Nigeria.
No. We don't love Nigeria like that.
No, we do.
How do you measure that?
Quickly.
Hang on.
Is it just
quickly?
Let you come.
Why are we not showing the love?
That's what I'm saying. Love is an action.
We love Nigeria.
We do love Nigeria.
Uche,
so you tell your wife you love her, but you don't take care of her. You don't do anything for her. But
does it mean you don't?
No,
but does it mean you don't?
It means you don't. Love is an action.
No, you do.
You cannot just be chilling and
Ekene, by
from
blocking that siren at the toll gate.
I love
you showed your love for
You
Nigeria.
showed your love.
That's how you show
But
love.
let's see your contrast.
Yes.
But Nigeria still hasn't done anything for her, but she still showed that love.
Then show it. Then more people need to show it.
When you criticize the government
So Uche is
constructively,
saying, how would you do that? It's by putting your country first.
Yes.
Yeah, but
I'm saying. I'm coming up with solutions.
But I do think that, much as I'm teasing Liborous for doing what he does, and that was really a tease, but I think that you do get people who do show love for Nigeria every single
but
day.
Enough.
But what's enough?
That's the point. Enough would change
when you consider against the backdrop of corruption.
What is enough? Enough is relative.
Yeah, it's because there's a backdrop of corruption that
but the backdrop of corruption is that as a result of government. I mean, come on, we got to separate.
When you criticize government constructively,
church and state,
you're showing love because you want things done
to be better, and that's love.
And so the message we are sending is, look, the fact that you're criticizing somebody, there's what they call feedback.
Yes.
Oh, government can do this differently and achieve better results. That's feedback.
Yes.
But here we don't take feedback because we see feedback as negative.
As criticism.
Insult.
Yes.
Criticism is good.
As insult.
Sensitive egos.
So let's, do that often and then not just recite
let me just chip this in because we're about to round up. Let me just chip this in to say, I'm glad you brought this topic simply because now I began to realize that it's not bad that we have the pledge. It will be a reminder to us of the hypocrisy of what we're doing so that we'll keep being challenged.
You remember once I talked about the second stanza being a prayer?
But we can change it with the new generation.
We can agree
if we care enough.
Well, time, they say, is not always our friend, but it's time to broaden the conversation as we read out some of your contributions, but always keep them, short and straight to the point. Concerning the beggars who should be kings, Chairman Dukwe O. Martin says, preach it. We all need to have this mentality. We are kings, not beggars. On the episode of The Advocate, episode 15, Ashuku Christian says, we want more and more. Oh, thou shalt not commit adultery. Toches Nwa Christ, yes, that's my friend Nwa Christ, says, wow, why do I feel like you have a special calling to save marriages? That is to Uche. Dan Akpan Elias says, is this a phone-in program? I usually don't get back home until past 8 p.m. And I do watch TV plus TV, but never seen any of these episodes. Then Akpan, you can always catch us on Sundays, 6 p.m. And then go to YouTube. You'll get more on YouTube. You can go and join the conversation by dropping a comment on our social media platform, on Twitter at +TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG. Don't forget the NG. And on Facebook and Instagram, on +TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG. We look forward to hearing from you. Time for a break. Ekene will be giving us some good news when she returns.
Welcome to The Advocate, a program that thrashes out all the topical issues of the day.
When you are in government, you don't see nothing wrong with whatever is happening. The moment you are out there, everything is wrong.
You can't even see many women now, and when they're there, they're not even really making a mark, and then they have an NYSC problem and this and that.
One of the reasons why we don't have more women in politics in Nigeria is for as long as political meetings continue to take place in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
No,
really.
disastrous for a president
To even say
be
he's unaware.
unaware of the chief
It's
justice.
a ploy. It could be a strategy.
That strategy was very
Backfired.
terrible strategy. Because the buck stops at your table.
Whether it's that we don't look after our cities, and quite frankly, Nigeria is becoming a very ugly place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, you know, the news.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Time to take stock of what is in our hands. Citizen X against the odds. The recent Tiger Woods conquest is illustrative of a shout of victory in the face of defeat, the restoration of a dream against the odds. As individuals, we must fight for our dream. We must face down our obstacles and dare our Goliaths, even if those odds were inadvertently created by us. We must arise and be Citizen X, the unique citizens we are destined to be. Citizen X is that person who hones his or her talents against the odds and brings it to bear in the group setting, be it family, community, or nation setting, at school, home, or work. We must be our own advocate first and foremost. Do not be cowed into conformity. A choir is sweet to the ear, not because of the monotony of voices, but because of the harmony of varying tones and pitches. Discover and stay true to your unique vision. Ditch the excuses. Your country, your sex, your circumstances, or conditions of your birth are not enough to hold you back. Funny, this sounds a bit like the Easter story, doesn't it?
So, growing up in my school, I was just, thank God this came up, and then, so it's a continue of the gist during the break.
People will be now wanting to...